If I were trying to make like a parody video of like vegans and the go vegan, it's easy sort of message, this is pretty much exactly the video I would make. So Hannah McNeely, she is Ellen Fisher's sister. She's also a vegan YouTuber, and she has started this series called
Veganywhere.
Anyway, she's doing this because she believes that you can be vegan virtually anywhere in the world.
Even in places where people don't know what the word vegan means. Even in places where people hunt and fish animals regularly, both for sport and for food. Even in places such as in certain pockets of the US that are considered food deserts, meaning the only food options around are gas stations and fast food restaurants. In fact, if someone lives in an area like this, I highly recommend the service called Thrive Market, which is an online organic grocery store.
If your answer to food deserts is to shop at Thrive Market, you should not be promoting veganism as easy for anyone. And also, look, this video is sponsored by Thrive Market. Both of the videos I'm talking about are sponsored by Thrive Market. You know, I'm not saying that sponsorships are inherently bad. I don't think that at all. And I think a lot of good channels rely on sponsorships because they get copyright strikes and whatnot. It's totally fine. But when you're supposedly trying to show and trying to help everyone go vegan, and in doing so, you promote a membership site that sells like stupid superfood shit, you look a little bit biased. That, or you don't really know what a food desert is, or you don't really know what it's like to be poor. Either way, it's bad. Before I go any further, I do want to say something positive about Hannah, about her attempt here, you know. I think it's a laudable goal, not necessarily her goal, which is to show that like everyone can go vegan. Well, now I'm being negative, but it's not the same thing as helping people budget, right? It's not the same thing as saying, oh, you want to go vegan, but you're struggling financially. Well, here's a way to make it easier, right? Like, here's a way to make this cheaper. Instead, she's kind of like, oh, you're saying you can't go vegan because it's too expensive. Well, not really. That's not really the same thing. But anyway, I want to be positive. She's obviously passionate. She's obviously passionate about, veganism. My God, she's obviously passionate about veganism, about animals. She obviously wants to help people go vegan. I just think that like many vegans, especially newer vegans, her passion is kind of like obscuring her ability to really listen to people, when they say, hey, this is really hard. Hey, this is really expensive. That, you know, being able to find and buy things like Beyond Burger and Ben & Jerry's is actually pretty privileged. And the girl that she's staying with, Kendra, this is the person she's staying with in South Bend, Indiana, the person she's helping go vegan and supposedly showing that, you know, it can be affordable, whatever, is really terrific. I love that she's honest about not liking certain things. There's a tahini dressing I'll talk about later that Hannah makes, and she's like, no, you know, not really for me. She obviously cares about animals. She talks about that being her like driving thing, you know, for going vegan, and she wants to eat more in line with that. I just wish she had a better role model, you know, someone honestly better than Hannah who can actually show her how to do this successfully and affordably and like nutritionally balanced. Like what is this? A salad and sweet potatoes for lunch? Come on. So she goes to South Bend, Indiana. This is her like example of, wow, look, you can be vegan in the Midwest, you know, implying that it's hard to be vegan in the Midwest. And she also like equates that, like she says the South, the Midwest, like rural areas, like she kind of equates all these things, which is pretty ignorant. Like, you know, there's a big difference between cities in Tennessee, Memphis, Nashville, Chattanooga, and like small little townships, places like Bucksnort, Tennessee, and like really, really rural areas. And there are also differences within cities, right? I mean, there are rich people who live in Memphis. There are rich people who live in South Bend or Indiana. And there are also really, really poor people who live there. So yeah, it's a little bit telling, I guess, that she doesn't know the difference between those things. But anyway, yeah, South Bend, Indiana is not really rural. It's the 4th largest city in Indiana. It has a Whole Foods, as she says.
We're not going to Whole Foods, even though there is a Whole Foods here. We're going to go to just a regular grocery store.
It has a vegan restaurant. I found this on Happy Cow. Apparently it has one vegan restaurant. It has a few restaurants that have veg options. Again, that doesn't mean that everyone is well off in South Bend, Indiana. I'm sure there are people who could use help. I'm sure there are poor people there. I'm sure there are food deserts there. I'm sure there are people lacking transportation who only have access to, like, within walking distance, like convenience stores and fast food restaurants. But as I alluded to, Hannah didn't stay with someone like that. She stayed with Kendra. Again, not saying anything bad about Kendra. She seems really lovely, but she also seems pretty privileged. When I lived in Memphis, I hear a lot of like, wow, you were vegan in Memphis? That's so amazing. Vegan has Whole Foods, 2 Whole Foods. It has, when I was there, it had a Sprouts. It had several farmers markets, several Targets, grocery stores, Kroger and whatnot, a couple vegan restaurants, several restaurants with vegan options. The key is that I didn't struggle financially and I had a car. So for me, being vegan in Memphis was not hard in terms of like accessibility. I had access to all that shit, but many Memphians do not. There are many people in Memphis who live below the poverty line, and saying that it's easy to be vegan in Memphis because I could be vegan in Memphis is fucking offensive. Or just really ignorant. Again, she keeps equating the South and the Midwest with like rural and inaccessibility, as if there aren't rich people in Tennessee and like Savannah, Atlanta, New Orleans, like whatever. It's so dumb. So like I said, they have a Whole Foods, but they do not go to the Whole Foods. So, that's something at least. She goes to a regular grocery store, which, not going to be accessible to everyone without transportation, right? When I think back to the apartment I lived in Memphis, it was a good 30-minute walk to the closest grocery store. So that's a total hour-long trip just for the getting to and coming back from shopping. Now, if you're able-bodied and you have time, that might be totally fine. But what if you're disabled? What if you're working 2 to 3 jobs and you can't spare that amount of time just for shopping? That's definitely not vegan for everyone, or vegan for virtually everyone. Like, a lot of people can't make that work. Now, the place we live in now is even further from a grocery store. We do have a little specialty one that's within walking distance. It's really close, but it's also super, super expensive. And then we also have a dollar store, which is actually pretty great. You can actually get a lot of vegan stuff there, a lot of beans and stuff like that. So if you guys are interested in a dollar store video, I might do that. I was going to do it before. What happened? Did I get pregnant? I think I got pregnant and then I couldn't eat anything that we got. That sounds right. Anyway, if you're interested, let me know. But anyway, they go to the store and, this could at least be an opportunity for Hannah to talk about, like, look, you have access to a grocery store. Okay, how can we make this as cheap as possible, right? She does for like a second. She talks about choosing dry beans over canned beans, which is true. Dry beans generally are going to be cheaper than canned beans. Although, you're kind of putting in a convenience issue now, right? I mean, if you're working 2 to 3 jobs and you have very, very little time to cook, that could be prohibitive. But obviously, if you have the time and you're looking for ways to save money, and this works for you, it's a really great tip. But the rest of the trip to the store is utterly useless. Like, look at this cart. The avocados alone, it looks like there are about 4 of them. That's probably around $5. That's usually what I see, 4 for $5. Sometimes they're on sale, those large ones for like 88 cents, but that's still pretty expensive. Produce in general is not cheap, and it's if you're living below the poverty line, it's generally going to be a luxury item because it's just so expensive per calorie. Like those strawberries are crazy expensive. A pound of strawberries is only 145 calories. Even if you're getting strawberries on sale for like $1, which I rarely see, usually strawberries are about $2.50 a pound, which is crazy. And then on sale, sometimes they're like $1.50 a pound. But even if you get them $1 a pound, that's still crazy expensive. That's only 145 calories. Produce is important, and it's one of the things that's really hard for people to afford, people who are struggling financially. I would have loved to see some tips, for making it cheaper, some cheaper options. She's got bananas there, carrots, obviously they're an amazing source of vitamin A, and they tend to be one of the cheaper vegetables that you can buy. Frozen stuff can often be less expensive. It's important to look, you want to cost compare. Usually you're looking at, per ounce, how much it is per ounce. And in the frozen section, obviously there's kale and stuff that's going to be really expensive, but peas tend to be pretty cheap, way cheaper than she's got all these greens here, which are crazy expensive. Again, like strawberries, you know, if you really want strawberries, sometimes the frozen is actually cheaper than the fresh strawberries, even when they're on sale. So again, it's important to look at the differences between frozen and fresh, stuff like that. You know, instead it's like, hey, look, here's a cart full of low-calorie food that you're either gonna eat, you know, through in a few days, or it's just gonna go bad in a few days because it's highly perishable. Wow, isn't it easy to be vegan? Then she talks about non-dairy milks, complaining about how most of them have additives.
A lot of the vegan milks just have tons and tons of additives and even have like sugar and oil. It doesn't make any sense. So you gotta really look hard to find a brand that just has soybeans and water, because that's all you really need to make good soy milk. Let's look at the brand. This is one we're finding not at Whole Foods, just a regular grocery store.
So first off, many of these additives are kind of useful. They're usually vitamins like calcium and vitamin D and B12 that can be lacking in vegan diets, and they're things that you would generally find in cow's milk. And second, the milks that she's recommending are more expensive. Like generally the cheaper soy milks you're going to find are the ones with additives like Silk, Almond Breeze, the store brand, right? So like the Kroger brand of soy milk or whatever. So yeah, overall, just terrible, terrible recommendation, especially for people on a budget.
I'm attempting to make a cashew sauce in the Ninja, and I was telling her one day she got to save up, ask for a birthday or Christmas or something, get a Vitamix because it's a life changer.
Because a $330 refurbished machine, that's not even for a new one, but for a refurbished one, it is really affordable and really makes veganism look accessible to everyone. If I were trying to make like a parody video of like vegans and the go vegan, it's easy sort of message, this is pretty much exactly the video I would make. Vegan chocolate mug cake. I'm sure that's super affordable.
We have really good vegan cheeses. Like, oh my gosh, especially if you go to a good vegan restaurant, they make vegan lasagna just right. And like, it tastes just like dairy-based cheese.
First, where are these restaurants? Seriously, where are these restaurants? I've never been to a restaurant and had vegan cheese that made me go, oh my God, this tastes like real cheese. So that's pretty amazing. And number two, vegan restaurants aren't really known for being super affordable. So then she feeds Kendra this, there's like potato pancakes and parsnips with guacamole and cashew cream and steamed broccoli. So, you know, not exactly the most affordable thing. You know, fresh broccoli's pretty expensive. Cashews are pretty damn expensive. Again, avocado, pretty expensive. And it's also not very complete in terms of nutritionally balanced. Where's the protein? Like, I know if I ate that, I would be hungry again in like an hour, and then I'd end up eating more, which means spending more money. This is really terrible role modeling from a budget standpoint and also from a nutrition standpoint. So that's the first video in the series. The second video is really more of the same. They do a what I ate today. That's like not budget friendly, nor is it nutritionally complete. So yay. Banana pancakes with a crap ton of berries, expensive, and store-bought granola, expensive, and maple syrup, which, you know, is known for being an affordable sweetener, expensive and low protein. Now, you know, if the next meal is just full of protein, that would be fine, or like super, super cheap, maybe that would be fine. But of course not. Lunch is sweet potatoes with a salad and tomatoes and bell pepper. The tomatoes don't look like Roma, which tend to be the cheapest. Still not super cheap, but you know. And bell pepper are like always expensive. Generally, I see them for like $1.20 each. Sometimes they're on sale for $1 each. And they're also kind of risky because sometimes I cut them up and they've got like mold inside. You can't see it from the outside. So it's kind of a risky thing. I would definitely, if you're struggling like financially, I would definitely recommend frozen. If you really want peppers, they have like the sliced peppers with onion, I think. That's pretty good. Anyway, she also has a dressing. It's a tahini dressing. Tahini is crazy expensive. Looks like she's putting some lemon in it, fresh lemon instead of bottled, which is a lot more expensive. It looks like she goes out to a garden to pick strawberries and beets, because having access to green space like this is a a sure sign of financial struggle. Again, I'm not coming after Kendra here. I don't want it to sound like that at all. This is Hannah's video, and the point of her video is to show that even if you're struggling financially, you can do this. I don't think she's showing that at all. Anyway, this is where Kendra doesn't like the dressing, which again, I like that she, admits that.
What'd you think of the salad?
I like salad. I just didn't like the dressing.
Aw, fail.
That was it.
It's important to remember that a vegan diet is limiting by its very nature, right? You are cutting out a lot of foods. That's what vegan is. And so if you have certain sensitivities or whatever, if there's certain foods that you don't like, it can make it hard. Now, obviously not liking tahini is not a big deal. I don't really like tahini except in hummus. That's really it. It's super bitter to me and not very good. But, if you don't like beans or a lot of grains or whatever, then yeah, it's gonna make it pretty hard. You're definitely gonna have to make an effort to like those foods, which can happen. That happened with me. I didn't eat beans growing up. No. And like my mom, she made a wide array of food. Like we didn't just eat Southern shit. We didn't really eat a lot of Southern stuff, to be honest. But she made beans and stuff. I remember my brother loved lima beans. Oh my God, the smell. I can remember the smell. I still hate them. Yeah, it took me, number one, trying really, really flavorful stuff like hummus, falafel, things like that. And I went, oh, beans aren't so bad. And then I just kept incorporating more and more and more stuff, making more and more tasty things, having them in stuff for a long time, not just whole beans. It took me a while until I could actually eat just like chickpeas on a salad or something like that. And even still, like if you told me I never had to eat another bean except for soy in like tofu and stuff, not just soybeans, obviously, I'd be totally okay with that. They're still not my favorite thing, but I will eat them. If I had infinite money, I probably would never eat a bean again. Oh man, I would just live on Beyond Meat crumbles, the Guardian chicken teriyaki, the Morningstar Farm chicken nuggets, the Tofurky kielbasa, the Smart bacon, and coffee and peanut butter. That's all you need, really. Point is, if you don't like certain foods, it can be harder to stay vegan, right? If you're more open to a lot of different foods, if you're not like a super taster, right? That can make it super hard if you really, really struggle with bitter tastes. I think I have that to some extent. I think it's why I really struggle with a lot of foods like tahini and a lot of vegetables and stuff, which I've just had to, kind of come to accept. Like, I can eat carrots. I can eat broccoli most of the time if it's roasted. Sometimes I can eat kale with like garlic and onion and stuff like that. But yeah, most vegetables, and also I have texture problems. So like zucchini, the texture is, doesn't work for me. So yeah, I've just had to accept that and be happy that I can at least eat broccoli, and romaine. I like romaine. And going back to Kendra and the dressing, it might not have had anything to do with the tahini. Hannah says that she made it very simply.
It's a very, very simple dressing. And Kendra has shared with me, you like
flavorful.
I'm
not saying it wasn't. I guess it just wasn't my type of flavor.
No, I know what you mean.
She doesn't say what that means, but she is like in the no oil crowd. So it could be possible that she's also in like the no salt crowd. They tend to run together. So I wouldn't be surprised if that dressing were just tahini and water and lemon juice. Like no salt, no garlic, no spices. Oh God, kill me. Anyway, Hannah says that they are, I guess to make up for the salad, they're going to go to Whole Foods, which she said they weren't going to shop at, but now they're shopping at Whole Foods, totally budget friendly, and that they're going to buy vegan junk foods. Totally budget friendly. And she also says this.
The good vegan junk is so great for transitioning because like it helps you like love your food and remind you of what you used to eat, but except you're not harming the animals. But you want to feel good too, because you don't want to blame the vegan diet for like feeling like crap.
No. I find it really interesting that people like Hannah, vegans who eat super high carb and no oil and seem to think that protein doesn't exist or just isn't important at all, that they always seem to blame ex-veganism on transition foods, like mock meats and vegan junk food, whatever, ice cream, stuff like that. The ex-vegans I see don't eat like that. Raw Vana, Raw Alignment, Kal-El, Bonnie Rebecca, Tim Sheaf, Moon and Rock, Blonde Vegan, I'm sure there are a bunch more I'm not thinking of, none of them ate that way. None of them were eating transition foods regularly, if at all. Most of them were eating high carb, were eating heavily restricted vegan diets. They were doing like juice cleanses, stuff like that. Or again, just eating like high carb, low fat, even low fat raw vegan. Many of them, like Rawvana, started that way, raw alignment. And then when they inevitably moved away from the raw thing and started eating cooked vegan foods, typically they're still eating high carb with like little to no emphasis on protein, and often little emphasis on fat as well. None of them claimed that they were living on vegan junk foods. Meanwhile, I'm over here living on soy protein and peanut butter and coffee, and I'm still vegan after a decade. Obviously, I'm joking. That's not proof of anything. It's not evidence for anything. But if like virtually all of the ex-vegan YouTubers ate like I did, I'd be a little bit concerned, you know? And I certainly wouldn't be promoting that diet to people trying to go vegan. Anyway, they buy a bunch of stuff at Whole Foods, some like Daiya Ranch dressing and Beyond Meat and Ben & Jerry's. Awesome. I eat that shit all the time. I'm so happy that we can afford to buy that stuff. It's delicious, but it's not affordable. This is not helping to show that anyone can be vegan. Just because this stuff is available where Kendra lives doesn't mean that everyone can buy it. Then she shills for Thrive again and talks about how affordable it is. You know, if by affordable you mean that it's lower than the typically super high prices of these like superfood, you know, like hemp seeds and stuff like that, that's not what affordable means. Like, okay, it's cheaper, but still $10 for a pound of hemp seeds is still incredibly expensive. If you don't know that, you don't know anything about poverty and you don't know anything about what people's actual food budgets look like. You shouldn't be making this video. Anyway, these are what Hannah considers basic essentials: raw cashews, specialty crackers, Bob's Red Mill steel cut oats, granola, gluten-free pasta, chia seeds, coconut aminos, arrowroot, and flax seeds. So literally none of this is essential and all of it is expensive. Flax and chia, they're good sources of omega-3s, but canola oil is a lot cheaper and you're going to be able to find it in virtually any grocery store. Coconut aminos is an expensive version of soy sauce. Why? It's totally unnecessary. Bob's Red Mill is stupid overpriced. Like, why would you recommend, number one, Bob's Red Mill, but number two, steel cut oats when you can get like quick cooking oats for next to nothing? Cashews are great. I use them all the time. They're not cheap. Neither are these specialty crackers, I'm sure. Like, what the hell? You can just get crackers, even whole wheat crackers, for a pretty decent price at just the grocery store. Gluten-free pasta. Why? Arrowroot powder. Why? And this doesn't even take into account that people without cards, people without bank accounts cannot shop here. And there are people without bank accounts. These are the people who need the most help and they cannot join this service. And that's it. I think Hannah is going to continue the series, but that's like all I can stomach, you know? I don't know. Either she really doesn't know anything about this. She really doesn't know anything about poverty, or she just doesn't care. You know, she wants everyone to be vegan, and so everyone can be vegan. I'd be more sympathetic if she were new to veganism, you know, if she were still in that like pink cloud sort of phase. But she's not. She says she started her vegan journey 13 years ago. That is more than enough time to grow as an advocate, not even as an advocate, but just as a human being, to recognize that, like, oh, there are people who live very, very different lives than me. There are people who are not as privileged as I am. There are people who have crippling disabilities. There are people who don't have very much money. There are people who don't have supportive families. There are people with chronic depression. I get the desire to ignore this, to ignore that people like that exist. You know, Hannah, she wants to help animals. She wants to help people be healthier. And so she really wants to believe that everyone can do this, that this is accessible for everyone. But it just isn't true. Currently it's not true. Maybe one day, I know that plant-based foods are going to become more affordable. Maybe that one day they will be super, super cheap. Not just rice and beans, right? But like other foods, because no one's just going to eat rice and beans. Come on, that's stupid. I don't just eat rice and beans. Like, what vegan just eats rice and beans? Seriously. And look, maybe even fruits and vegetables will be subsidized one day. How awesome would that be? But we're nowhere close to that, and pretending that we are is not helpful. What is helpful, I think, is recognizing where we are as a society and meeting people where they're at. You don't have to go vegan to make a difference. I think that's a kind of stopping point for a lot of people, and they don't do anything because they feel like they can't do everything, right? You can still make a big difference just by getting started and making, small changes. Even just having one vegan meal a week makes a difference. Virtually everyone can eat less meat, can eat less animal products. And again, starting with one meal a week is a great way to start. Just making like a bean soup or something really, really cheap. Just beans, pinto beans. In my experience, pinto beans tend to be the cheapest. You can get those huge, like 32 ounce, the 2-pound bags, whereas like lentils are going to be a little bit more expensive. So something like pinto beans, some onion and garlic. If you want to go really cheap, you could use onion powder and garlic powder, some canned tomatoes. Always look for the store brand of things. Usually they're going to be cheaper, not always. And usually the larger containers or cans are going to be cheaper, right? So like the larger 28 ounce cans of tomatoes versus the little like 15 ounce cans are generally going to be cheaper. Sometimes they'll have the smaller cans like on sale, and it's actually a better deal than the larger cans, right? So yeah, tomatoes, some carrot, salt, pepper, some spices if you have them, like oregano, maybe some chili powder, stuff like that. Saute the onion and the carrots, add the garlic and the spices for just like 30 seconds to a minute, something like that. Add the water. You can use broth if you want, but obviously that's going to be a lot more expensive than just water. The beans, if you're using dry beans, again, it's going to be a lot cheaper than canned beans. If you are using dry beans, don't add the tomatoes yet because they can inhibit the cooking and softening process. Bring it to a boil, then turn it down to a simmer and let them cook for like an hour or so. Just, check, make sure you're not running out of water, and just check until they're soft. And if you use cans, it's obviously a lot quicker, and you can add the tomatoes in at the same time. It doesn't matter, and just cook it for like 15, 20 minutes or longer if you want. Like, it really doesn't matter. You really can't mess up something like that unless you like burn the onion or garlic or something, which can happen, if you're not familiar with your oven and what number or what setting is actually medium, right? That's a pain in the ass, because like medium on my stove is actually 3.5. It's not 5. You would think it's 5 because it goes from 1 to 10. No, 5 is super fucking hot. Anyway, yeah, that's an easy little soup to try, and you can have it with some bread. Bread is generally pretty cheap unless you're getting some specialty organic whatever bread. Just get some cheap sourdough or something. It's pretty good. So hopefully that is helpful. You can find Budget Bytes is generally a pretty good resource. Some of the stuff on there that's affordable is questionable, but she's got the like price and then the amount per serving. Obviously, your mileage may vary depending on how much stuff is in your actual store, if stuff is on sale, things like that. But that's a good place to start. And she has her recipes sectioned off, so you can go to, I think there's a little vegan tab, and it's all her vegan recipes. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know. It's depressing. I see this so often from vegans. I've already, I've talked about this kind of thing before. I have another video on, I might just call this the name of that video part 2 or something like that, because it's basically the same thing that, to eat a vegan diet, generally you have to be pretty privileged, and it's like, even the way that these people are showing, like buying all the transition foods and stuff, it's like, who do you think can afford that? I don't know. It's really frustrating. But in happier news, High Carb Hannah is now eating a high protein diet. That just popped up in my recommended. I think YouTube just knew that I'd be excited about that. It's pretty funny. Yeah, I just have to be negative. But look, she still has like videos on her channel where she like talks about how it's bad to eat a lot of protein.
Your cells don't run off of protein. Your body can't even really use excess protein, and it's very detrimental to your health to be eating a lot of protein because your body has to filter it, and it produces toxic waste when you have too much of it.
But whatever, I'm gonna be positive. It's great. I'm glad that she is promoting a more balanced vegan diet now. Pick your battles. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe, support the channel, patreon.com/unnaturalvegan, and I will have a new video very soon. I don't know. I just wanted nail polish. I don't even really like this color. It's like a, coral, I guess, or, that kind of pink. It's not really my favorite. So like, why did I get that color? I don't know. And I don't, I haven't worn nail polish in years. I think the last time I wore nail polish, actually, I got a, one of the vegan beauty subscription thing when the beauty boxes were like just becoming a thing, or the vegan like boxes, right? It was probably a Vegan Cuts, I think. I think it was their beauty one. It had like a nail polish in it. So I put the nail polish on and I was like, oh, I hate this. Like I can smell it. Ugh, I can still smell it. What the fuck? Why? Why did I do this? And my partner hates it. Apparently he hates the smell of nail polish. I guess I should have seen that coming. He's like really, really sensitive to smells. We're both sensitive to smells, but like opposite smells. Like he hates like chemically kind of stuff like nail polish, whereas I'm like, I don't like it, but I'm not like, oh my God, it's gonna make me, makes my head hurt or something like that. It's just more like, if I'm eating something with my hands and I'm smelling it, I don't really like that. But, I like the smell of like gasoline and stuff like that. Whereas the smells that really bother me are more like natural smells, like dirt and certain foods, cooking broccoli or beans or something, especially when you leave the house and then you come back in and you're like, oh my God, it just smells like fart in here. So yeah, I painted them in the bathroom and I came out and he was like, oh my God, what's that smell? And like aired out the house. And yeah, so that was cool. Oh, and he just hates the way they look too. He said they look gross. Thanks, dude. Yeah, he said it reminds him of like long nails and he hates long nails. So yeah, I failed on like every level. It's kind of amazing. Like, I don't really like it. I don't like the color. Oh, I wasn't able to clean them up because I don't have nail polish remover, because of course I don't. I haven't painted my nails in like, years. So yeah, wow. I failed on every single level. That's kind of impressive.